Good morning. It's Bitcoin Day, a great day to be back at it. Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Lawrence Lewitton and Emily Parker are off. Lawrence will rejoin me Thursday after observing Rosh Hashanah, so happy New Year to everyone out there celebrating. Looking at our top story, Bitcoin is now legal tender in El Salvador, a world first just 3 months after the Bitcoin law passed the country's legislature. To commemorate the event, crypto supporters are buying $30 worth of Bitcoin to honor the occasion. They're calling it Bitcoin Day. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele announcing yesterday that El Salvador has just bought its first 200 coins. Our brokers will be buying a lot more as the deadline approaches. Hashtag Bitcoin Day, hashtag BTC. Altogether, El Salvador has bought 2 tranches of 200 BTC for a total of 400 Bitcoins. So is that moving Bitcoin price? Well, let's take a look at the markets right now. Checking in on Bitcoin, the CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is currently trading just below $51,000. Bitcoin is slightly down about 85 basis points. Taking a look at the ETX Ether index right now at 3743. ETH is also slipping about 4.2% over the past 24 hours. And the new DFX CoinDesk's DeFi index is trading at 666. Number of the devil. All right. Down about 10% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data.
The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
Joining us now to discuss El Salvador and more is Seth Melamed, Chief Operating Officer of Japanese-based global crypto exchange Liquid. Seth, welcome to the show. So we saw Bitcoin spike to nearly 53,000 in the run-up of the excitement to this Bitcoin law. El Salvador has been buying 400 BTC. Bitcoin advocates urging a global campaign to buy $30 worth of Bitcoin. So that seemed to give Bitcoin a boost, but now the price is pulling back. So what's your interpretation of the impact of the Bitcoin law on Bitcoin and the crypto markets? Oh, I think you're muted. We'll try to get you back, Seth. Perhaps try talking as you try to get your audio back. Oh, you're still on mute. All right, we'll work on that as we try to get Seth back and take a quick break. So stay with us and we'll talk more about El Salvador's new Bitcoin law.
CoinDesk Indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. Our trusted data powers billions in publicly traded funds. CoinDesk Indexes are the standard used by institutions, and they're the key for investors looking to understand and access crypto markets.
As the company that launched the world's first ever Bitcoin ETF, we at purpose chose the CoinDesk Bitcoin Price Index, the XBX, to price our assets.
CoinDesk Indexes enabled the early adopters to build crypto investment vehicles, and they're already trusted by a new generation of global investors.
All right, welcome back. And joining us now to discuss El Salvador and more is Seth Melamed, Chief Operating Officer of Japanese-based global crypto exchange Liquid. Hey there, Seth. I think we've got your audio now. So tell me a bit about your initial assessment of the crypto markets right now. We're seeing a bit of a pullback after a run-up. We saw Bitcoin touch nearly $53,000 the other day amidst this excitement surrounding the El Salvador Bitcoin law. So what's your interpretation of what the markets are doing?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much, Christine, for having me on that. And I wanted to say Shana Tova, Happy New Year to everyone out there. Listen, so we see Bitcoin starting to approach the previous highs that were reached back in May. And the news with El Salvador is sort of a confirmation of what's generally happening, is that Bitcoin is starting to get out into the hands of the next billion users of the cryptocurrency. So, earlier, if you go back into last year in December, when you saw Bitcoin run up from, say, around 19,000 at the end of 2020 till at the peak, let's say in April, 62, 63,000, a lot of that was driven by leverage trading derivatives. But what you're seeing now is, not as much leverage positions, and you're seeing sort of what I would call real money. People that are, buying Bitcoin for, in this case of El Salvador Sovereign Wealth Fund, or people are just buying it through some of the greater accessibility that's been developing throughout this whole year, with different, PayPal apps or other sorts of easy ways to obtain Bitcoin. So I think what's really driving this price is just greater adoption and better accessibility by people all around the world.
That's a really interesting perspective, because at the same time, the law is not without its controversies, Seth. Nearly 70% of Salvadorans surveyed by the Central American University in a poll released last week either disagreed or strongly disagreed with using Bitcoin as legal tender, though about 90% also did not have a clear understanding of Bitcoin. So who do you think are the people that the retail people who are getting on board with this and are, experimenting with the technology?
Well, for sure, it's going to be the younger generation, people much younger than myself. My mom and dad, even though I've been crypto guy for maybe 7 years myself, my parents still don't even own Bitcoin. So I suspect it's a very similar situation in El Salvador. But perhaps what's also happening here is that the government is taking a longer term view about their own sovereignty, and in a sense, decoupling their finances from a US dollar based type of financial services system. And a lot of this has to do with education. We've seen it happen in more advanced countries. I believe in the US, we're probably in the higher teens of people that actually have Bitcoin, and maybe in developing nations it's still coming. And so governments have to look at not just where we are, but maybe where we need to go, and that's probably part of their thinking around adopting Bitcoin as legal tender.
Well, in El Salvador, they're certainly eager to get people to adopt Bitcoin. The presidential legal advisor, Javier Argueta, confirmed in an interview that it is mandatory to have an electronic wallet to receive payments in Bitcoin, despite the fact that the payment may not be received in BTC but in dollars. Is this the right route to go? Is it sustainable, do you think?
Well, I personally don't think so. I think, what we've seen with different cryptocurrencies, they have different uses and different strengths, right? And the cost of Bitcoin transactions is still prohibitively high. So I do wonder about how the implementation of this is going to work when if people are trying to, buy some groceries maybe for $20, but they end up having to pay $10 or $15 in transactions fees if this really works. But maybe it's a start, and they may start to adjust and add in other currencies or other ways and lower cost ways of using crypto to transact. Bitcoin is probably not necessarily the best way to buy a cup of coffee, as we've learned. But I generally think that the idea of using blockchain is a right step in direction, and maybe they'll evolve their framework and add in additional currencies over time.
And certainly there are those who are working very hard to develop Bitcoin sidechains like the Lightning Network to make those smaller transactions possible. And you sit from an interesting perspective in Asia. So I wonder, Liquid being a Japanese-based exchange, how are people in Asia looking at this? And do you potentially see Asia adopting Bitcoin as legal tender? Because I understand Japan allows Bitcoin for payments, but it is regarded as an asset and not legal tender. So maybe you can explain the nuance and differences.
Sure. That's right. So Bitcoin is an accepted form of store of value in Japan, and people do use it. However, it's still not something you can often go and pay for your dinner with Bitcoin yet. In fact, there's probably less Bitcoin ATMs in Tokyo today than there might have been a few years ago. That said, the interest in crypto as an asset is continuing to increase in Japan as well as broader Asia. What we also see, though, is a lot of interest in people finding ways to use crypto as a method of savings and generating yield, especially in low-yielding countries like Japan, where you have either zero or low interest rates. There is an appeal of cryptocurrency with staking or lending that they can actually get a better return on their cryptocurrency holdings than they could get on their yen holdings, for example.
Well, they even have negative rates. So in that environment, when you do want to earn yield of some sort, is the crypto markets the gateway?
It certainly is, and which is why we're really bullish on our business, and we're bullish about the next sort of products and services that can leverage off of the, all the different things you can do with crypto. And the crypto has that scarcity principle that allows people to sort of preserve wealth in an environment where fiat, may not be the best store of wealth over the long run as, inflation and other things start to happen with currencies.
Mm-hmm. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Liquid suffered one of the biggest hacks on a crypto exchange in recent history. $90 million was stolen by a hacker who has been taking steps to cover their tracks. Public blockchain data showing that $20 million was sent to an ETH mixer. Some ended up on Uniswap, Huobi, Binance, and Poloniex. Perhaps you can explain what happened for our viewers who are not familiar.
Sure. So, Liquid has always been a very innovation-first type of business. We started adopting a technology called multi-party computing technology in 2019. And one of the key aspects of multi-party computing technology is that the private key is never held by a single entity, either a person or a server. Unfortunately, on August 19th, when the hack occurred, the villains were able to construct the private key and make unauthorized transactions out of our cryptocurrency wallets. We conducted a full investigation to understand how this occurred. We've been working with law enforcement, regulators, our customers, to really understand what happened and to limit the extent of the damage. From the 19th, we have had some success working with the broader crypto ecosystem to recover some of those stolen funds. We also worked very hard to, of course, identify the attack vector with our technology partners and cybersecurity experts from around the world to help us rebuild our infrastructure, and actually got our exchange back going within 1 week of the actual incident occurring.
So from a security standpoint, I'm just shocked that this could happen, with the encryption involved in blockchain technology and such. So what can be done to prevent this from happening in the future?
I can assure you, Christine, I'm more shocked than you are. When I was first told this happened, I was actually in the U.S. I had spent the day at the beach with my girls. That we were in Hawaii, and I didn't have Wi-Fi when I came home. The first words out of my mouth were, "This can't happen," but it did. What can we do? Well, unfortunately, in a crypto exchange where you've got hundreds of millions of dollars, it's always going to be a target of villains. And these, in our case, it was a very well coordinated, very well funded a group of individuals that they didn't just stumble into this. There was a long time planning. What can we do? I think the first answer I would say is, if you are trading on an exchange, and that is oftentimes the best way to source liquidity and access crypto for anywhere from people who are first experiencing crypto to people who've been trading for a long time. Know your exchange and know if they're taking certain practices. One of the first things to understand is your exchange regulated and licensed? If so, in a case like Liquid, which we are regulated in 2 different jurisdictions, your chances of recovery of funds, if there is some sort of black swan event, is much greater than if you're trading on an unregulated, unlicensed exchange. The second thing I would say is, understand what the security policies are at the exchange. Do they do regular penetration testing? Do they apply, a sufficient team to be in charge of security? Do they have things like bug bounties? None of those KPIs, if you will, are guarantees that the exchange you're trading at doesn't get hacked, but it certainly lowers the risk. And in the case of a licensed regulated exchange, even if there is to be sort of a tail risk event like what would happen at Liquid, the chances of getting full restoration and not actually suffering any losses are much higher. So in the case of Liquid, we were able to, with some partners in the industry, ensure that clients didn't suffer any losses from the hack that had occurred.
Okay. And it's interesting that despite the hack, some of the money is being traced, and you think that there may be some potential for some recovery in the long term down the line. But my other question is, are people vulnerable? Is the risk of in developing nations like El Salvador adopting crypto at this time when it is still a novel technology, potentially a bit buggy, especially with DeFi, do the risks outweigh some of the benefits?
Well, that's a great question. As someone who really believes in blockchain technology, decentralization, I do believe the benefits outweigh the costs. It's really incumbent upon the people participating in the industry to improve the accessibility, and that is happening. The amount of investment that's happening to make the tools to access crypto more secure, more user-friendly is going at great pace, and I think that's going to continue to happen. I do believe in the vision where people will be able to be self-sovereign and controlling their funds with wallets. But it also means that we have to spend a lot of time doing education and making sure that all ends of the spectrum are being served by the development of the technology, not just the DeFi degen using MetaMask and scripts, but even the people maybe are just downloading a wallet, that the tools make it secure for everyone to access this wonderful new technology.
All right. Well, Seth, good luck with improving those security measures and potentially recovering some of those funds. Appreciate you coming on the show. Shana tova ve'mitika.
Thank you very much, Christine. Shana tova.
That was Seth Melamed, Chief Operating Officer at Liquid Group. Coming up, a look at the Asia crypto markets, and we'll talk to Bitcoin investment group Valkyrie.
CoinDesk indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. Our trusted data powers billions in publicly traded funds. CoinDesk indexes are the standard used by institutions, and they're the key for investors looking to understand and access crypto markets.
CoinDesk Bitcoin Price Index, XBX, has been instrumental to Grayscale, enabling investors around the world to access Bitcoin through a regulated, familiar product.
CoinDesk indexes enabled the early adopters to build crypto investment vehicles, and they're already trusted by a new generation of global investors.
Welcome back. Time now for the daily forecast, an update on what's happening in the Asia crypto markets. Here's Angie Lau of Forecast News.
Welcome to the Daily Forecast, September 7th, 2021. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast News, covering all things blockchain. Crypto markets are on a roll this week, and things look set to get hotter with Solana hitting an all-time high, Bitcoin becoming legal tender in El Salvador, and Cardano about to launch smart contracts. So much to talk about. We're going to get right to it. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. First up, it's a busy week already for crypto market news. Tuesday morning Asia time saw Solana hitting an all-time high, with its value tripling over the last 3 weeks. Not only that, but ahead of Bitcoin becoming legal tender in the country, El Salvador's president Nayib Bukele announced the purchase of a total of 400 Bitcoin. That's around $21 million worth at current market prices. Forecast News' Lachlan Keller has more on the market action.
Solana's historic run has continued to break new ground. According to CoinMarketCap, it gained 22% within 24 hours, hitting $179.32 Thursday lunchtime in Asia. One expert told Forecast News that while it's been performing well, it is difficult to make long-term predictions for emerging tokens, but he remains optimistic.
As communities grow, as the use cases grow, and the adoption curve continues, yeah, sure, this is going to continue for quite some time.
Caseland also says that while such altcoins might not be Ethereum killers, it's a reminder that its second place position in the crypto top 10 cannot be taken for granted. Meanwhile, though he thinks investors shouldn't trade Bitcoin on the basis of El Salvador adopting it as legal tender on Tuesday, it will be interesting to see which other countries may be set to make similar moves.
If you're a country that relies heavily on remittances, for example, El Salvador, but also Philippines, then this makes sense, right? It makes sense to kind of optimize these payment rails.
And of course, we're also keeping watch on Cardano. The Alonzo upgrade, allowing smart contract functionality, is due to launch on September 12th. For Forecast News, I'm Lachlan Keller.
Meanwhile, Hong Kong-based crypto exchange FTX's newly launched NFT marketplace has suffered a spam attack. So what does this all mean for the next stage of NFTs? Forecast News' Michelle Lim got to the heart of the matter with FTX's Sam Bankman-Fried. This report from Hong Kong.
FTX's NFT marketplace was set up with the idea of it being open for anyone to list whatever they wanted, with users able to trade NFTs cross-chain using both Ethereum and Solana. However, just an hour after it launched, around 1,000 artworks had already been submitted, mainly of fish. It quickly became clear that some limits would have to be set. So a fee for submitting works was introduced. After initially setting it at $500, it was quickly reduced to just $10 per NFT. CEO Sam Bankman-Fried told Forecast News he's surprised at the amount of excitement there has been over NFTs, and while he thinks the market will experience a correction, some investors are in it for the long term.
I don't think that many of these people are planning to just try and flip it for a profit. And so I think, unlike some speculative bubbles, I think that a lot of the people planning to buy these NFTs are just planning to hold them.
That popularity shows no sign of abating just yet, with Bankman-Fried's own test NFT selling for over $250,000. For Forecast News, I'm Michelle Lim in Hong Kong.
And finally today, Tisk Kim, one of the world's biggest influencers, has been named and shamed over endorsing crypto speculation. Kim Kardashian currently has, as you might know, over 250 million followers on her Instagram. And you might remember back in June, she promoted Ethereum Max, a project which had been launched by unknown developers in May. While she did reveal that the post was an ad, she didn't have to disclose that the token had only been created a month ago, which it was. Well, now the UK's Financial Conduct Authority has called her out in a scathing speech. The head of the FCA, Charles Randall, said her post could have achieved the biggest audience reach in history for a financial promotion and accused her of fueling the, quote, delusions of quick riches. Randall said that while he cannot say if Ethereum Max is a scam or not, social media influencers are often paid by scammers to help pump and dump new tokens, which are based on speculation. He went on to warn that such speculation may not end well. And that's the daily forecast from our vantage point right here in Asia. For more, visit forecast.news. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.
The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
Time for our live look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index is trading over that $51,000 threshold, now just down about 36 basis points over the past 24 hours. And the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is trading at 3770, now down about 3.4% of the day. And the new DFX, CoinDesk's DeFi index, is also trading slightly up, 667, though over the past 24 hours, still down about 6.8%. And joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Stephen McClurg, Chief Investment Officer and Co-founder at Bitcoin investment management group Valkyrie. Welcome to the show, Stephen. So taking a look at Bitcoin and price amid this El Salvador historic moment, the Bitcoin law is going into effect. What's your interpretation of what is happening in the crypto markets, how people are playing the news?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, there's a lot of people in the community that are supporting this adoption by El Salvador. So we're all purchasing Bitcoin today. As a matter of fact, we had a nice little dip today in Bitcoin. So it was a good time for Valkyrie to add about 30 more Bitcoin to its balance sheet. So we did that this morning. And then myself personally, along with several other people in the Bitcoin community, are also purchasing Bitcoin for ourselves and giving $30 gifts, $30 worth of Bitcoin as gifts to friends, family, and others. So that's been a lot of fun doing that this morning.
Well, indeed, we saw Bitcoin rise in price. The day before. Today, it's pulling back. Traders taking profits potentially. I wonder, with the effect of people returning from the summer holidays, what kind of impact we'll see, as traders get back to the desk. What's your outlook in the next 3 months of Bitcoin?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the summer has been a great time for people to go out on vacation and go to other places, go on holiday. And that is typical in financial markets for summers to be a little bit lower volume, a little bit boring. But usually after Labor Day is when people get back into their desk and start trading again, and you see higher volumes, and in a lot of cases, in things like hard assets and equities and other types of assets of that sort, higher prices. So we believe that we're going to see a lot of movement into Bitcoin and potentially other crypto assets as well over the next 3 months, probably through Christmas. So we do expect to see prices go up quite a bit, as well as volume.
And we see El Salvador being the first to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. Do you think other countries will follow?
Absolutely. Myself as a former emerging market bond trader, we used to have to do all kinds of tricky things to get liabilities back into dollars. We would trade emerging market bonds in local currencies, but then have to apply cross-currency swaps in order to get dollars in the door, because we didn't necessarily trust a lot of currencies from other countries due to potential inflation or even hyperinflation. So what I expect to see is many other countries following El Salvador adopting Bitcoin. I would much rather own Bitcoin and get Bitcoin as payment than many other emerging market currencies.
Do you see any headwinds for Bitcoin?
Of course, the one thing that you always have to look out for technology is better technology. At the moment, Bitcoin is the best technology out there as far as a payment system. And the two things that really drive that are, number one, its limited supply, and number two, its inability to hack. So that's really where a lot of the other ones fail. So right now, Bitcoin is leading. So you always have to look out for other innovations that may come up that could change that. But the other thing too is it's become very commonplace. I've used it personally to buy things like art or pay people like I would pay them back in Venmo. And vice versa.
But that's arguable, because a lot of people find it is not the greatest payments mechanism because it can be kind of slow. And right now, there's that argument that it's more of a store of value versus a payments option. And there are other coins. Right now, we see Solana gaining in volume, but because they're potential Ethereum killer. So just switching slightly a bit, I wonder, what is your view of other coins like Solana coming into the fray?
Yeah, so I'm actually a big fan of coins like Solana and Polkadot. Algorand is another big one, but they have to be categorized a little bit differently than Bitcoin. And the main reason why is they don't have a limited supply. In order for something to really be a strong hard currency is the limited supply. And that's why gold has been not only a store of value, but also a medium of exchange for centuries. Solana, Polkadot, Algorand, what's great about all of those is it's a completely different reason. Those are protocols that you use the token as gas or payment on that protocol. And even though these protocols are extremely fast, they support NFTs, which are really hot right now. They support video games, video game usage. Those are all great instruments for that protocol, but as a payment mechanism for cross-border cash, electronic cash, they're not really where Bitcoin is.
Steve, is there any hope for a Bitcoin ETF in the United States? What's the latest on that?
I wish I could comment on that. We have several applications on file, is all that I'll say, but we really hope that something's coming soon.
there was some comment from SEC Chair Gary Gensler that potentially some futures, Bitcoin futures involved in the ETFs might be looked with a little more positivity in passing. Has Valkyrie switched their game plan in ETFs to sort of play to Gary Gensler's wishes, if you will?
We have. So the three ETFs that we have on file related to Bitcoin is, the first one obviously that we filed was a spot ETF. And then the second two are two different flavors of Bitcoin futures. One was more of a hunch that we had that the SEC might approve that first. And then the second one was was in response to Gensler's comments. So we're definitely, putting
covering your bases for sure.
Exactly.
So, and if not, if the United States, lags on this front, do you think investors will just go to other markets? Will novel innovations in finance proliferate in other countries, like in El Salvador potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I keep saying is every time I buy Bitcoin now, I'm actually buying El Salvadorian currency for the potential that I might be visiting there. But as far as financial innovations go, look, there are ETNs available in other countries, and people are purchasing them. The Canadian ETFs are available in the U.S., and people are certainly buying them from U.S. markets. So it's kind of a shame that we're allowing Canadian ETFs into our markets, but we're not allowing U.S. ETFs in our markets that we can actually regulate.
I haven't heard that one, Stephen. You're buying Bitcoin, El Salvadoran legal currency. Well, thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate your insights and hope to see you soon. That was Stephen McClurg, Valkyrie CIO. All right, coming up, we'll check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor, Nick Day.
When we say we want to reimagine money, it turns out we're going to the heart of the matter. Imagination has always been a key part of what money is. Imagination, in the form of cultural creativity, is also something that the cryptocurrency community has in spades. And to the outsider, that can be a reason to dismiss it as frivolous, as something built on nothing. To dismiss it for these reasons, though, is to ignore that all money is imagined.
Welcome back. Time to check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Hey there, Nick. So DeFi is in the crosshairs of U.S. regulators. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission is investigating the developer of decentralized exchange Uniswap, according to a Wall Street Journal report on Friday. What can you tell us about that?
Hey, welcome back. And yeah, the SEC has been signaling for quite a while now that it is taking a closer look at DeFi. And it finally seems that there's confirmation it is conducting an investigation. What we don't know is what exactly the SEC is asking and whether or not this investigation will for sure lead to some kind of enforcement action. It could very well be that it's just an information gathering project. But at the very least, we do know that the SEC has been asking questions about DeFi and has, raised concerns, particularly through Chairman Gary Gensler, about issues like investor protection or whether or not tokens are being listed that could qualify as securities. So those are two of the likely areas that the SEC might be taking a closer look at as part of this investigation.
And of all the DeFi platforms out there, Nick, why Uniswap?
I would be surprised if it's just Uniswap, to be honest. I suspect that, either there are more investigations ongoing or, Uniswap is just, the first of the bunch. But Uniswap, I guess, has, a particularly high profile central backer in the form of Uniswap Labs. There is a entity that you can point to and say, yeah, they are affiliated with Uniswap. So other DeFi platforms that have a similar kind of counterpart might also be, investigated or face inquiries soon. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be any charges brought, just that I think that's how it's going to play out. But I think that what the SEC is looking at is there a central player that, has some kind of a significant role with this DeFi platform that can, answer questions or, be part of this investigation.
Very interesting. And I wonder, to what extent can DeFi be regulated? It's global, decentralized, ostensibly designed to circumvent government and institutional influence.
Well, that kind of goes back to, we've been talking about this infrastructure bill for quite a while, and the big concern there is that the IRS could impose tax reporting obligations on, even small players and individuals that are participating in peer-to-peer types of markets. And something very similar could happen here with DeFi. You have, if the SEC says, all right, any kind of transaction, of these types of cryptocurrencies must be reported or registered with the SEC ahead of time, then they could try and impose these types of reporting obligations to DeFi platforms, or at least the participants on these DeFi platforms. But at least right now, it does seem more likely that they're going to focus on the the firms backing these projects rather than the actual traders.
And Nick, any final comments on El Salvador?
I think it's going to be the litmus test. We're going to see how it's rolling out and whether or not it is in fact mandatory to be using Bitcoin, or if it's just something that people have the option to use. From the regulatory front, it just seems like, so far the IMF and other countries are kind of just looking at this. They're not really huge fans of this. I think it's way too early to see if it's going to be copied successfully elsewhere.
It's a great experiment. We'll see how it goes. Very much looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Nick. That was CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation, Nick Day. Don't forget to sign up for the State of Crypto newsletter on CoinDesk.com. Time now to check in with Crypto Twitter with our tweet of the day. And this one going to President of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, tweeting, like all innovation, the process of #Bitcoin in El Salvador, it has a learning curve. Every road to the future is like this, and not everything will be achieved in a day or in a month. But we must break the paradigms of the past. El Salvador has the right to advance towards the first world. All right. And we salute you and wish you luck in that endeavor, President Bukele. That's it for First Mover. I'm your host, Christine Lee. I'll be back live at 3 p.m. with All About Bitcoin. Coming up at noon is The Hash. You're watching CoinDesk TV.